Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Narasimha Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Narasimha Paramahansa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter number 23, entitled Devahuti's Lamentation, text number 9. Evam Bruvanam abala akhila yogamaya evam bruvanam abala akhila yogamaya evam bruvanam abala akhila yogamaya vidya vichakshanam avekshya gata adhihi asit vidya vichakshanam avekshya gata adhirasit vidya vichakshanam avekshya gata adhirasit samprashraya pranaya bihvalaya gira ईषत् संप्रश्रय प्रणय विह्वलया गिरीशात् संप्रश्रय प्रणय विह्वलया गिरीशात् संप्रश्रय प्रणय विह्वलया गिरीशात् व्रीड अवलोक विलसत् हसित आनना आह व्रीडावलोक विलसद्धसिताननाः व्रीडावलोक विलसद्धसिताननाः एवं ब्रुवाणमबलाखिल योगमाया विद्या विचक्षणमवेक्ष्य गताधिरासीत् संप्रश्रय प्रणय विह्वलया गिरीशत् व्रीडावलोक विलसद्धसिताननाः एवं ब्रुवाणमबलाखिल योगमाया विद्या विचक्षणमवेक्ष्य गताधिरासीत् संप्रश्रय प्रणय विह्वलया गिरीशत् व्रीडावलोक विलसद्धसिताननाः Evam, thus, Bruvanam, speaking, Abala, the woman, Akhila, all, Yogamaya, of transcendental science, Vidya Vichakshanam, excelling in knowledge, Avekshya, after hearing, Gata Adhihi, satisfied, Asid, she became, Samprashraya, with humility, Pranaya, and with love, Vihvalaya, choked up, gira, with a voice, ishat, slightly, vrida, bashful, avaloka, with a glance, vilasat, shining, hasita, smiling, anana, her face, aha, she spoke. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Upon hearing the speaking of her husband, who excelled in knowledge of all kinds of transcendental science, innocent Devahuti was very satisfied. Her smiling face shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of great humility and love. Kindly repeat. Upon hearing the speaking of her husband, who excelled in knowledge of all kinds of transcendental science, innocent Devahuti was very satisfied. Her smiling face shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of great humility and love. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is said that if one is already engaged in Krishna consciousness and is rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord, then it can be supposed that he has finished all the recommended courses of austerity, penance, religion, sacrifice, mystic yoga, and meditation. Devahuti's husband was so expert in the transcendental science that there was nothing for him to argue about. And when she heard him speak, she was confident that since he was very much advanced in devotional service, he had already surpassed all transcendental educational activities. She had no doubt about the gifts offered by her husband. She knew that he was expert in offering such gifts, and when she understood that he was offering the greatest gift, she was very satisfied. She was overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and therefore she could not reply. Then, with faltering language, just like an attractive wife, she spoke the following words. Dasa and Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namavo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Mande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So, Kardama Muni has offered to Devahuti, his wife, the gift of love of Godhead, because she has faithfully served him in every possible way without any hesitation, understanding Kardama Muni's mind and his expectations. She has served him to the fullest extent without any reservation, without considering that she was from a very high parentage. Her parents were her father was the emperor of the world. She was a princess before she married Kardama Muni. Without considering all that, she menially served Kardama Muni, and because of that, Kardama Muni became very pleased with her, and he decided to give her the gift of love of Godhead. Now, Devahuti's reaction is being explained here, that she knew the qualification of her husband Karda Mumuni. She knew that he was an expert in transcendental science. He knew all kinds of transcendental knowledge was available to him, and she knew that Karda Mumuni was a great personality. In the first place, she herself chose Karda Mumuni, having heard about his great transcendental qualities from different sages, and that's how she wished to marry him. And we are seeing here that Devahuti got attracted to the qualities of Karda Mumuni. She had not met Karda Mumuni before. She had not seen him. She had no way to be in contact with him. Simply by hearing about his great transcendental qualities, she became attracted to him. And that attraction, as we are seeing here, Vridavaloka Vilasad Hasita Ananana. She spoke to Karda Mumuni when Karda Mumuni told her that he was gifting her love of Godhead. She became very satisfied, and with a smiling face, shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of great humility and love. Having rendered service to her husband for such a long time, naturally, she also developed. Already she was attracted to Karda Mumuni, but that attraction developed into great love. And so even Karda Mumuni also, because of receiving the service from his wife Devahuti, as we have seen in the previous verses, he also developed love for his wife. So from the material perspective, when we look at this, the relationship between Karda Mumuni and Devahuti, how this two people came about who had never met each other before, but who had at least only Devahuti had heard about Karda Mumuni. Otherwise, Karda Mumuni, of course, Karda Mumuni also had heard about Devahuti, that she was so beautiful that even a Devata Gandharva, when he was going on his plane, he saw Devahuti, and being stunned by her beauty, he fell off his plane. So these kind of incidences had they had become quite famous. So Devahuti was also quite famous that way, and Karda Mumuni had little bit heard about Devahuti also, but nothing so much to create a loving relationship between the two of them. So, but then, simply on the strength of the service rendered by Devahuti to Karda Mumuni, the husband and wife developed deep love and affection for each other, as well as respect. And as we can see here, Devahuti also was filled with great humility towards her husband. The principle of love between a man and a woman, or between any person and another person, is dependent upon certain principles. There are certain laws of nature which can bring out the loving relationship between a boy and a girl. It is natural for a boy and a girl to get attracted to each other. Initially, that attraction may be mainly based on the physicality. The physical appearance and the beauty of the person may attract a person to a boy or a girl to another, the opposite sex. But then that attraction is very ephemeral. It is very temporary. It cannot last. In the Vedic civilization, everybody clearly understood what is the basis of love. In modern day world, when we speak of love between a boy and a girl, it is simply the physical attraction. And the love for a boy and a girl is simply based upon the sexual relationship. But such kind of love, so-called love, cannot last long, because it is founded on a very flimsy foundation. In the Vedic civilization, the foundation of the loving relationship between a husband and wife was not based upon the physical relation between them. As we can see here, Devahuti and Kardama Muni did not have, although they were married for quite a long time, they did not have any sexual relationship between the two of them. But still, they developed great love for each other. This is because, as it is stated, that for the loving relationship to establish and to sustain, 6 principles are involved. Dadati pratigrinnati guhyamakhyati prichhati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvida priti lakshanam. The symptoms of love come about the activities involved in 6 things. What are the 6 activities which symptomize loving relationship between 2 personalities? Dadati pratigrinnati. There is giving of gifts and receiving of the gifts between 2 individuals. Then there is guhyamakhyati prichhati, revealing confidential things within the heart to another person, and the other person also hears and he partakes in those confidential subject matters of the other individual. And third thing is bhunkte bhojayate. The one person feeds the other person, and the other person also gladly accepts the feeding by the other person. These 6 activities constitute loving relationship. You see how Vedic literature, they are very precise and they give very accurate explanations to all kinds of human activities. Modern day world, they have no understanding of what is love or loving relationship. They think loving relationship, boy and girl, means a boy gets attracted to a girl looking at her physically, and the girl gets attracted to the boy on the basis of maybe his money or whatever, based on his power or his money power or his physical power, and that's called love. That's supposed to be love in this material world. And love means there has to be sex between the boy and girl. This is what is love. But although in the material world, this kind of love between a boy and a girl is very highly glorified. You will see in all kinds of movies, novels, stories, everywhere. This kind of love is highly glorified. But what we find in reality, in real life, is such relationships never last. This kind of loving relationship between a boy and a girl is epitomized in the Western world, and now India is also adopted. It is imitating that Western understanding of the love between a boy and a girl. And we can see how this kind of loving relationship between a boy and a girl in the Western world is actually a complete failure. It doesn't last. Whereas Vedic literature, if you see, very accurately they define what constitutes love between 2 personalities, especially between a boy and a girl. So, dadati pratigrinnati, the husband has to give gifts to the wife. It is the expectation that he will give gifts of nice jewelry, nice clothing for his wife, and the wife also accepts it very gladly. And bhunkte bhojayate, the wife cooks nice food stuff in return, and the husband also enjoys the food cooked by the wife and fed to him. And guhyamakhyati prichhati, there are no secrets between the husband and the wife. Whatever confidential things are there, the husband reveals to the wife, and the wife also reveals her heart completely to the husband. And this kind of relationship which existed in the Vedic times resulted in long-lasting relationship in marriage. Today's world, if you see, if we talk of wife having to cook and feed the husband and take care of the household chores, what happens? People say, oh, this is inequality. We have to have gender equality. So why only wife should cook? Husband also should cook. And so a wife should have independence. She should have independence. She should do whatever she wants to do. So she should also have a career. She should also go out. So what happens? Husband cooks his breakfast. Wife cooks her breakfast. They both go out, have lunch somewhere outside. And when they come back in the evening, both of them are tired, go out to some restaurant, eat and come. So there is no bhunkte bhojayate. So one principle of loving relationship already cut. Then when it comes to guhyam akhyati pritchati, why the husband and the wife should reveal everything to the partner? They have their relationships, they have their careers, they have their goals, and independently each of them pursue their life. So what happens? Guhyam akhyati pritchati, cut off. Now the only thing left is dadati pratigrinnati. Somewhere some gift. Once in a while, some gift they may give each other. What is that? One wedding card, or one a birthday card or wedding anniversary card. They will give each other. That's it. Over. So people nowadays, what they do is they gift themselves. They don't think of gifting to the other person. Why? Because if I buy something for my wife, will she like it or not? Better I tell her, you buy yourself. She will go to Amazon. She will go to Flipkart, buy whatever you want. Okay, you gift yourself. And why husband has to give money to wife? Wife is already earning money. So you buy yourself a gift, I'll buy myself a gift. So dadati pratigrinnati also gone. Then what is sustaining the relationship? Practically nothing. Because all the 6 principles of loving relationship are no more there. And so what happens? The relationship doesn't sustain. Very quickly, the husband and wife, they get married and then they get divorced. In the Western world, even the very few people get married. People don't want to get married also. What is the meaning of marriage? A boy and girl are coming together for some convenience. They get attracted physically to each other, so they come, stay for some time. After some time, the physical attraction will evaporate, and then both of them go their ways. So no commitment, no big, they don't have to explain why they have broken up to all their relatives and all that. In India, still some amount of value is there for marriage. So what happens? The boy and girl in India also now, they don't want to get married, but okay, just to satisfy the parents, let us get married. And for the parents, conducting the marriage is a matter of prestige. They have to show off to their relatives and friends. So they create a big pomp and show and then call everybody. Everybody comes, sings, and they have some dance, some booze, and some food they eat. They go their ways. After 1 year, boy and girl divorce, then ho gaya. Then they have another partner. Life goes on. So marriage has become a joke now. Eventually what will happen is, a few more years go like this, people will stop marrying also. Why spend so much amount of money on marriage and all that? Not required. So we can see how if the relationship is not based on the principles of love as described in the Vedic scriptures, then there is no question of developing love. It will not last. Some physical attraction may be there in the beginning, but eventually what sustains a relationship between two individuals is the personalities, the attraction towards the personality of the individual. Physical appearances don't matter. They don't have a lasting effect on the relationship. What actually has a lasting effect is the personality of the individual and the service rendered by one to the other. One person has to render service, other person has to accept the service. There has to be, and what kind of service also, everything is defined in the Vedic scriptures. So that is exemplified by the relationship between Karda Mumuni and Devahuti. Because Devahuti rendered menial service to Karda Mumuni and Karda Mumuni also accepted. So it became his duty to give her a gift. So Karda Mumuni was not an ordinary person that he would give some gift of some material things, some jewelry, some nice clothing. No. That Karda Mumuni already condemned in the previous words. He said, what is the use of all these material things? They will all get destroyed in time. So I'll give you a greater gift. What is that? A spiritual gift, an everlasting gift, the gift of love of God. So you see, dadati pratigrinnati, all these principles we can see acting out in the relationship between Kardamomani and Devahuti. And Devahuti also Guhyamakyate Parichati. She wants to reveal her heart, which she will in the next verse. We will see how what is there in her heart. Confidentially, she is having a certain desire. She has not expressed to her husband till now. Now is a good opportune moment. She is going to express her heart. So all the principles of service and confidentiality and reciprocative gifting, all these kind of activities we can see in the exemplary Grihastha life of Kardamomani and Devahuti. And Kardamomani, being the ideal husband, he played the role of an actual spiritual master to his wife. It is in the Vedic understanding, the husband, the father, these are all natural spiritual masters. That means they are expected to naturally play the role of spiritual master to their dependents. This is the expectation and this is the role and responsibility of a husband or a father. Now in the case of Kardamomani, because he was a great devotee, he played the role of that Acharya to perfection. And Devahuti also, she felt gratitude towards her husband for giving her the spiritual gift of love of God. As it is stated here, Devahuti, hearing the words of her husband, she felt gratitude towards him. So, Samprashra Pranaya Vikfalaya Gireshad. So she felt extremely satisfied. So that satisfaction for Devahuti comes because she knew that her husband was not only simply a material husband, but also her spiritual master. When we look at this relationship between Devahuti and Kardamomani from the perspective of a disciple and a spiritual master, there also there are many things which we can learn from the way they conducted themselves. Disciple should always feel gratitude towards his spiritual master for whatever he is giving. What kind of gratitude? We all express gratitude to anybody who helps us in any way. We say thank you, or we express our gratitude by words, or by giving some other object in return, or we render some service in return. So in some way or the other, we try to repay the gratitude, repay the service which we have received from someone else. But in the case of a disciple, what happens is, as it is explained by Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Naivopayanti apachitam kavayas tavesa brahmayushapi kritam riddhamudaha smarantaha. So, Uddhava says, Kavayaha api, even very learned personalities, Naivopayanti apachitim, they feel that they are unable to express their gratitude, they are unable to repay their debt to their spiritual master. Naivopayanti apachitim kavayas tavesa. So, somebody may say, okay, I may not be able to repay you right now, but eventually over a period of time, I will be able to repay you by doing various kinds of favors to you. But the favor that the spiritual master has done to the disciple, what kind of favor it is? It is naivopayanti apachitam. One cannot express one's gratitude. Not only that, brahmayushapi kritam. Even if one serves the spiritual master for the lifetime of Brahma, even then he cannot repay the debt to his spiritual master. So, kritam riddhamudaha smarantaha. Whenever the disciple remembers the favor, the compassion, the grace of the spiritual master upon him, kritam riddhamudaha, he experiences great bliss and happiness. So, the relationship between disciple and spiritual master is a relationship of great happiness and one of great gratitude. Not only that, we have to understand that for Uddhava, Lord Krishna was the spiritual master. So he is said, describing Krishna, he said that why the disciple feels so much gratitude to the spiritual master, that even with the lifespan of Brahmaji he cannot repay him, because he says that all kinds of inauspicious things in the life of a disciple are destroyed by the spiritual master. So the spiritual master removes all the inauspiciousness in the life of a disciple. How? By Swagatim Yanakti. Krishna delivers himself to the devotee. So the spiritual master delivers Krishna to the disciple. And so Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. To achieve him, to get him, is not at all easy. So that supreme personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by great munis and rishis, whose lotus feet is meditated upon by the great austere sages in deep meditation, who is served by all the great devatas with great respect and reverence, that Krishna is delivered by the spiritual master to the disciple. And so, Acharya Chaitya Vapusha Swagatim Menakti. So, Krishna personally himself takes the role of Acharya and Chaitya Guru. Acharya Chaitya Vapusha. He takes the form of the Acharya and the Paramatma, and thus he guides the disciple and removes all the inauspicious things in his life, and he delivers Krishna Prema to him. So, Krishna, we have to understand that Krishna delivers the disciple through the spiritual master. And so, therefore, the spiritual master, the Acharya, is very, very dear to Krishna. Krishna, in fact, says, Acharyam mam vijaniyam. Na vamanyeta karhichit, na suyeta martya buddhya, sarvadevamayo guruhu. That the guru, the Acharya, is to be considered as good as Krishna, non-different from Krishna. Why? Because he is very, very dear to Krishna. Not that the Acharya, the guru, is Krishna himself. No. But the disciple has to treat him like Krishna. Why? Because it's just like, suppose there is a father and a son. And the father is a very big businessman. And the son is a very obedient and loving son to his father. So when the son grows up, the father, he will call all the people in his factory and he will tell them that whatever my son says, please treat it as good as what I have said. He is non-different from me. If he says anything, you consider that I have said. So, what does that mean? That does not mean son has become father. What that means is, because the son is so dear to the father considers the son as non-different from himself. So, all the staff in the factory also, when they look at the son, when the son comes into the office, they give him the same respect as they give to the father. In fact, they will give more respect. Because if they reduce the respect even a little bit, the son may not mind, but the father will get upset. And if the father sees that all the workers in the factory, they are giving greater respect to his son, he'll feel even more pleased. So, in that sense, Acharyam mam vijaniyam, Krishna says the Acharya is myself, meaning the Acharya is so dear to me that you have to consider him as non-different from me. Why? Because the Acharya is so dear to Krishna. So, this word Acharya is very, very significant, because again, we have to understand that the Shastras are very, very precise in their definitions of various terms. So, even the word Acharya has great meaning. It's not that anybody and everybody can become Acharya. Srila Prabhupada declared that he is the founder Acharya of the ISKCON movement. Why? Because it has great significance, the word Acharya. In the Vayu Purana, it is said that what is the function of an Acharya? Who is an Acharya? Achinoti yaha shastrartham. One who accumulates, one who gathers Shastra Artha, the essence, the meaning of the Shastra, of the Vedas. Achinoti, this word achinoti is an excellent word. Achinoti means to collect, to gather. So the Acharya, what does he gather? What does he collect? Achinoti Shastra Artham. He collects, he gathers the essence of the Shastras. And then what does he do? What does the Acharya do? Acharya Stapayantyapi. He, based on the essence of the scriptures which he has collected, Acharya Stapayantyapi. He establishes what is the Achara, what is the activity, what is the culture, what is the lifestyle, what does the disciple have to immerse himself in? What should be the living lifestyle of the disciple? Acharya Stapayantyapi. And not only does the Acharya establish the standards of the activity of the disciple, Swayam Acharate. He personally also follows the same principles. So it is not that he tells the disciples, this is the standard for all of you, but don't expect me to follow them. I am the Acharya. I should not follow. No. So Prabhupada established in the ISKCON movement, everybody has to chant a fixed number of rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Prabhupada also used to every day chant a fixed number of rounds. Prabhupada said that the standard of sadhana for his disciples in this movement is every day we have to get up for Mangalarti and we have to chant our rounds. Prabhupada also used to follow the same standard of sadhana. And then Prabhupada said every day we have to hear Bhagavatam class. So Prabhupada would give Bhagavatam class. Many times Prabhupada would be in a temple and Prabhupada would encourage his disciples to give class, and Prabhupada would personally attend that class. In fact, sometime when the movement initially started, everybody used to attend all the classes and all that. After a few years, what happened? Some of the disciples became senior. So when they became senior, they stopped attending the classes of the junior devotees who were giving class. Now what is there? I am senior, I know everything. So then Prabhupada said, don't become bigger Acharya than your Guru. I myself am attending the classes of my disciples. So what is the problem for you to attend? So you see, Prabhupada not only gave the Acharya, Prabhupada personally also followed. Acharate Swayam. Swayam Acharate. Swayam Acharate Tasman. Tena Acharyas Tena Kirtitaha. And therefore, he is called, such a person is called an Acharya. So that means Acharya establishes the standard of sadhana. Acharya Stapayanti. Stapayanti means he establishes what is the sadhana to be followed by the sadhaka. You and I cannot decide what should be the sadhana, what should be the sadhana standard. We cannot decide. Oh, why we should have Mangalarti at 4:15, 4:30. It's so difficult. Let us move it a little. Let us make it 5:30 a.m. 6 a.m. if we make it, everybody can attend. So easy. So all this is difficult. And why chant 16 malas? Let us make it 8 malas. We cannot do all those things. Because that prerogative, that right is given to establish the standard of sadhana is given to the Acharya by Krishna. So only the Acharya can do that. And so the Acharya establishes how the spiritual movement has to go forward. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada has given the Acharya of how the disciples will receive initiation from him through his July 9th directive. And so there is a process by which everybody can receive initiation from him. We cannot decide based on tradition, based on how other sampradayas are doing, how people used to do in the past, customs, traditions, what some procedure for receiving initiation is given in the Shastras. We cannot decide how initiations have to go on. That is the Acharya. That Acharya alone has the right to decide. And Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, has decided. in ISKCON how the initiations have to go on in the future. We cannot change that. We cannot decide that no, based on tradition and custom, we have to change this. Prabhupada said 16 malas we have to chant. Now, if you go by tradition, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if somebody does not chant 64 malas a day, he is no better than an animal. And Srila Prabhupada is telling us to chant 16 malas. So, if we go by tradition, then we all have to chant 64 rounds, not 16 rounds. But then Prabhupada as the Acharya has the right to set the sadhana standard. And so he has set the sadhana standard, and he has also set the standard of initiation within the movement. Only he can set, we cannot set. And so Prabhupada has set on July 9th, 1977, Prabhupada said this is going to be the standard. So we have to follow it. We cannot change it, we cannot think, we cannot bring in tradition, we cannot bring in the arguments of tradition and Shastra and customs and all these kind of things to change or to bring in an achara which Prabhupada did not institute. That right to institute an achara, achare sthapayanti, to sthapana, to do the sthapana of an achara, to do the sthapana of a practice in spiritual life. That requires authority, and the authority is given only to the Acharya. And Srila Prabhupada from the beginning has established that the only Acharya for our movement for ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada. Nobody else can call himself an Acharya. And if you are not an Acharya, then you cannot set the standards, you cannot set what should be, you cannot establish what should be the standard of initiations within ISKCON. You have to follow what Prabhupada has given. Over. So, therefore, Krishna is saying, Acharya Chaitya Vapusha. That Acharya, one should consider to be as good as Krishna himself and should follow his instructions without any deviation. So, the Achara that, if we look at it that way, the main function of an Acharya is to establish the Achara. What is the activity of a devotee? So, Srila Prabhupada and all Acharyas, if you look at it, their main purpose is to establish the Achara, the practice of developing the service attitude. So, giving transcendental knowledge is a secondary thing, because the Srimad-Bhagavatam itself says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Jnanam Vairagyam Che Dahaitukam. We don't have to strive separately to get jnana. Simply if we render devotional service, jnana will come. So therefore, the prime activity of the Acharya is to institute the service attitude in the heart of the disciple. And if that service attitude is developing in our heart, then transcendental knowledge also will get revealed within our heart. Otherwise, you see, the pages of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srimad-Bhagavad-gita, they are all in black and white. Anybody can read and gain that knowledge. So gaining knowledge is very easy. You just read the literature, you will get the knowledge. But then, Prabhupada did not limit the spiritual life of his disciples to simply reading books. Reading Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita and hearing Bhagavatam is an essential part of our sadhana, no doubt. But if you look at the 24 hours of the day of our life, majority of the time is not spent in reading Vedic literature. 1 hour we hear Bhagavatam class and 1 hour we do reading. So 2 hours in a day only we are spending on Adhyayana, on study of the Vedic scriptures. Rest of the day is what? Service. Morning, okay, morning sadhana, some 4 hours, 5 hours we keep aside for that. You keep aside that also. So in a day, about 6 hours is what we keep aside for our sadhana, for our adhyayana and all these things. Rest of the time, service. So majority of our life, majority of our time, Srila Prabhupada is filled with various kinds of devotional service. Somebody has to collect money, somebody has to cook, somebody has to go and preach, somebody has to... Different activities are there, which everybody has to do. Why? Because that is the prime function of the Acharya, to inculcate that spirit of service in the heart of the disciple. Without practical devotional service, that knowledge, that spiritual knowledge will not get revealed within the heart. It will, the deeper meaning of the Vedic scriptures will not stand in our heart. We may read, we may gain some theoretical knowledge, but it will not sustain within the heart. We will not be able to act on that platform. We will still be engaging in material sense gratification. So ultimately, by reading all the Vedic literature, we are supposed to become free from sense gratification. If we are still the slaves of the senses after reading, that means we have not developed the sense of the spirit of service. Only when that spirit of service takes place in our heart, that freedom from sense gratification desires also will come about. Then only the transcendental knowledge will transform into, jnana will transform into vijnana. Practical knowledge it will become. It will become part of our life. It will become something which we practice in our life. Otherwise, theoretically we may know, okay, I'm spirit, soul, I'm not the body, I'm different from this body, I should not engage in sense gratification. But all our consciousness, our thinking, our activities will all be on the bodily platform until we engage in practical devotional service. So Adhyayana is required, our sadhana is required. Ultimately, that has to result in the service attitude, which we can see even in the life of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Kardama Muni practically engaged Devahuti in service. And so, by practice, Kardama Muni actually, because of course, the society also that time and the Varnashrama Dharma also added on without Kardama Muni having to explicitly engage Devahuti in service, that because of the culture, because of the training already that Devahuti had in that Varnashrama Dharma, she immediately took up that service, and Kardama Muni also engaged her in such a way that her service to her husband was dovetailed in Krishna's service. So in our case, in the modern day world, that service spirit is not inculcated in the society. What is inculcated in the society? Objectification of others and sense gratification is the primary goal of life. So Prabhupada has to do double work. He has to engage us in service and also gradually inculcate that service spirit in us. That's the important thing. And that is why when we sing also in the morning, we sing Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasada. That we have to please the spiritual master with our service attitude, not by our erudition and our scholarship of the Vedic literature. That's not impressive. Prabhupada is such a big Vedic scholar. For him, our whatever amount of verses we are able to parrot out, and we are able to by heart all the 700 shlokas of the Bhagavad-gita, all that we may do, that's all not impressive to Srila Prabhupada. What impresses Prabhupada is our spirit of service. And if by our spirit of service we are able to please Prabhupada, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasada, Krishna becomes pleased. And when Krishna becomes pleased, what happens is love of Godhead fructifies in our heart. So these are wonderful principles which we can see acting out in the life of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, and that is the wonderful the beauty of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam brings out all these principles through the practical life and activities of great pure devotees. So these are some of the points which we can understand from today's words. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss. Yes, please. Satyajit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, this like you mentioned about that service and spirit of service. Could you please elaborate both points, service and spirit of service, both?
So, service means there are so many allocated activities that we are supposed to render as a matter of duty. In the initial stages, we may not have the spirit of service. That's what I mentioned. because in the case of Devahuti, the culture and the society at that time of Varnashrama Dharma had already inculcated that spirit of service in her. So she knew that she had to serve her husband, and readily she engaged in service. In our case, that spontaneity in service is not there. Devahuti spontaneously engaged in the service of her husband. Husband did not have to make an Excel chart of a schedule. This time you have to get up in the morning. In the morning, from this time to this time, you have to go and clean this one in the kitchen. Then you have to do the cooking from so and so time. He did not have to do all that. Whereas in our case, we are given every week. We have to give a weekly schedule. Otherwise, the devotees will get bored. What is this? Every week after week, I'm doing the same service. What is this? So why? Because spirit of service has not yet awakened in our heart. So at the present moment, what is done is Prabhupada is engaging us in service in the mood of duty, dutifully. This is my assigned service. This is my duty. I have to do this. I have to go out. I have to collect money. I have to go and do pujari service. I have to do assistant pujari service. I have to cook for the Lord. I have to go and preach in the college. These are all assigned duties. My duty I have to do. My service I have to do. So first level is doing our service as a matter of duty. What is assigned to me, I do. Gradually what will happen is, when we go on doing our service like this, we will become attached to our service. That attachment will come. Then slowly that attachment will develop into what will happen is, we cannot live without service. That will become our service, will become our life and soul. We cannot live without service. Even if there is no schedule, even if we are not told what to do, we will be constantly thinking, what service can I do? You see, from the heart it will come that I have to do something. I cannot sit idle. I have to do some service for the Lord. I have to do some service for the spiritual master. That the spirit will awaken within the heart. That's called the spirit of service. Spirit of service means I want to serve my spiritual master and Krishna. So without that service, there is no meaning to my life. My life is meant for service to Guru and Krishna. That is called the spirit of service. So right now, we don't have that kind of attachment. So some attachment is there. What is that? Attachment to duty. As a matter of duty I have to do, so we do. That rendering that service in that sense with a sense of duty will gradually bring out that spirit of service within us. That is why Prabhupada has instituted a whole framework of an organization where we all come, we stay here, and there is a hierarchy. There are senior devotees. They will assign some services to the junior devotees. What is the purpose? In the olden times, there was no such organization. Why? Because all this training was inbuilt into the Varnashrama system. Like you see, Devahuti, she knew, she was trained already at her home. The moment she got married, she knew, I have to serve my husband. She started serving. No questions asked. Today, if you tell wife has to serve the husband, there will be 100 questions. People will start trawling online. Why? Oh, what is this? You are oppressing women, suppressing women. There is no gender equality, this, that and all. It's not a matter of gender equality. It's a matter of the training. It is a training process, because nobody is woman, nobody is man in terms of at the spiritual level. Everybody is part and parcel of Krishna. Everybody is Prakriti. So everybody, whether man or woman, everybody has to go back to Godhead. Now the whole point is, you have to be trained. How to develop that mood of service so that you can serve Krishna and go back to Godhead. So for a woman, for her psychology, there is a particular way that you can develop that mood of, that spirit of service. And for the man, for his psychology, there is a way that service spirit can be awakened. So there are different ways which are designed in the Varnashrama system, by which man and woman both can develop that service spirit. In the case of Devahuti, as a woman, she was already trained up how to develop that spirit of service. She engaged that. She was trained. The training, she engaged in Kardama Muni's service, and immediately she got the result. That is how in the olden times, the people would get the results very quickly. Dhruva Maharaj, in 6 months, he got the result. So even Devahuti, that way if you look at it, she didn't spend her whole life serving Kardamoni. For a few years she served Kardamoni and she got the result, love of Godhead. Whereas we are going on serving, but nothing is happening. Why? Because that spirit of service itself was not awakened. In their case, whether it was Dhruva Maharaj, whether it was Bharat Maharaj, whether it was Devahuti, whether it was Kardamoni, already they were trained right from childhood in that spirit of service. So at a right time, they had to engage it in the right place. Devahuti had that spirit of service inculcated in her by her parents right from her childhood. And when she got married, she engaged that spirit of service in the service of a pure devotee. And so immediately what happened? Quickly she got the result. So that spirit of service, developing that spirit of service itself is a big task for us now. That is Kali Yuga, unfortunately. Because the society is not training us. Already by the time we come to Krishna consciousness, 25, 26 years of our life is already gone. In doing what? Serving ourselves and thinking I am the master. Now that whole thing has to get reversed and we have to develop. First we have to render service dutifully. Then we have to come to the level of accepting service as my life and soul. Then we will come to the stage of love of God. So there is a, due to the conditioning of the modern day world, modern day civilization, modern day society, there is so much anartha which is sitting in our heart. It will take time to clear all of them. But the silver lining is we got such a powerful Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, for our Guru, that our progress is very, very rapid. Nobody can expect this kind of rapid advancement from such a fallen state like we all are in. So that way we are all, that is why Krishna had to send Prabhupada in Kali Yuga to spread the movement. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said, Mora Senadipati Bhakta, my commander-in-chief will come. So commander-in-chief doesn't come to the battlefield in ordinary circumstances. Ordinary circumstances, there will be so many people who are in the, there will be so many captains, there will be so many generals and so many other people in the army who can take up the battle. But when the battle becomes very severe, the enemy is very strong and nobody else can fight the battle, then commander-in-chief comes on the battlefield. And when he comes, he has to accomplish astonishing feats. If commander-in-chief also fights like an ordinary soldier, then nobody will call him commander-in-chief. Commander-in-chief means he has to come and do miraculous things which nobody else can perform, seeing which everybody else will get motivated and inspired. And so, in Kali Yuga, because we are so fallen, the spirit of service itself is not inculcated in us. The spirit of overlordship is inculcated in us, the other way around. I am the Lord of everything I survey. This is the spirit we are all inculcated with. So what happens is, it is a very powerful, Kali is a very powerful enemy. So it's not easy to overcome him. So ordinary people cannot play the role of a spiritual master in Kali Yuga. So the commander-in-chief himself has to come. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent his commander-in-chief, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada also has done things which are unimaginable, which nobody else has performed. You look at it, Shankaracharya went up to Kashmir, Ramanujacharya went up to Nepal. That's all. They never crossed oceans and went anywhere else. That was their jurisdiction. And primarily their preaching was all to people who are already read in the Vedas and who are great scholars and Brahmanas and such kind of people. If you look at Ramanujacharya, if you look at Shankaracharya, they were going and having, and whether even if you take Madhvacharya also, they were going having great debates with Vedic scholars and great Brahmanas and defeating them and establishing the Siddhanta. But you look at Prabhupada. Prabhupada went to the hippies, to the drug addicts, and he converted them into Vaishnavas. So these are all unprecedented things. Nobody has done. Nityananda Prabhu did. The Supreme Lord himself did. That too only two people, Jagai and Madai, that's all. Rest of all the people, if you look at, You look at Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they were all great scholars, great ministers. Ramananda Rai was the governor. All big people. They all became part of the movement. And Nityananda Prabhu delivered two people who are fallen, Jagai and Madai. That's all. Prabhupada is delivering thousands and thousands of Jagais and Madais. That's called Commander-in-Chief. He has to do which nobody else can do, nobody else has done before, nobody else will do also in the future. So you know, that's the greatness of Srila Prabhupada, that he has brought out he is bringing out the spirit of service in all of us. Otherwise, very tough, especially in Kali Yuga. The training is not there. Is that okay? Any other point? Anybody else? Quickly, yes.
Everything that is told should be in conformity with Guru, Sadhu,
Sorry?
and Shastra.
Sorry, come again?
In spiritual life, everything should be in conformity with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Yes.
But we are also saying Acharya can set the standards.
Yes.
So how do we reconcile these two?
So what we have to understand is that we cannot assess the Acharya's setting of standards according to the scripture, because we do not know the meaning of the scripture. That is why first thing is Achinoti yah Shastrartham. The artha of the Shastra is gathered by the spiritual master only. So he knows what is the import of what the Shastras are saying. When the Shastras are saying you shall not take sannyas, what it means. But then, although Shastras are saying that sannyas should not be given in Kali Yuga, Prabhupada gave sannyas to so many people. According to Shastras, a sannyasi should not cross the ocean. If he crosses the ocean, he is fallen. Prabhupada crossed the ocean so many times. 14 times he circled all over the globe. So, when the Shastras are saying something, what they actually mean, that the Acharya only can determine, and based on that he will give the Achara. So we have to understand that the application of the Shastric knowledge is determined by the Acharya. We cannot determine. So we cannot judge the Acharya based on Shastra. What we have to understand, when the Acharya is giving something, that becomes the Shastric standard. That's what we have to understand. Otherwise, we will, with our limited knowledge, with our mundane vision, when we look at the scriptures, we will come up with some mundane interpretation. And that, when we look at it from that angle, we will not be able to comprehend the actions of the spiritual master. So we should not judge the spiritual master. That's why Krishna also said, Navamanyeta karhichet. One should never neglect the instructions of the Acharya. The Acharya, whatever he has said, that takes precedence over everything else. So, whatever the Acharya tells, whatever Achara, whatever sadhana standards he sets, it will be perfectly according to the Shastra. We may not be able to comprehend how it is according to the Shastra. But that does not mean that we have the right to overturn what the Shastra, what the Acharya has said. This is the reality. So therefore, Prabhupada set the standards, we have to simply follow, and gradually what will happen is all the import of the Vedas will be revealed. That is why you will see everywhere, normally when we look at different commentaries of various Acharyas, they are all called Tika, commentary. Whereas Prabhupada called his works purports. The meaning of the word purport, if you look at it, the English meaning of the word purport, the definition of the word purport is the meaning conveyed or implied. So, Prabhupada is giving purports to Bhagavad-gita and Bhagavatam. In other words, Prabhupada is conveying what the verses are actually wanting to convey. What is their actual meaning? Prabhupada is not commenting on the verses. Prabhupada is not giving us his opinion. According to me, it is like, no. Prabhupada is giving us what the verse is actually conveying. When Bhagavad-gita, Krishna is saying something, what is Krishna conveying? That is the purport of that verse. So, Srila Prabhupada is, as the Vayu Purana itself is stating, Achinoti Shastra Artham. the artha of the Shastra, Prabhupada has gathered and Acharya Stapayantyapi. He has Stapanad. He has done the Stapana. He has established what is the standard of sadhana to be performed in Kali Yuga. So we have to simply follow that. It's as simple as that. Is that okay? We'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.